Does anyone have a question?
Stuart, can you talk about being out of the mind, being shifting out of that space where there's almost like no mind or no chatter?
Well, yeah, I talk about this all the time, Wendy. And, look, it's kind of funny and paradoxical. When you're in your mind, you're out of your mind. You know, there's so much tension and so much craziness going on there. It's like a big ping pong match going on in your brain, from the past to the future to, all kinds of stuff. And the whole purpose of this is to quiet the mind. Understand, to get the mind centered at the very core of your being, building that kind of inner strength that can quiet the mind. So this noise, this chatter, it just, goes away. And when the mind is quiet, and for the mind to be quiet, the heart has to be open. You've got to be centered in the hara. You have to be grounded inside. The throat has to be open, and then all that tension can run down and it becomes shakti, it becomes energy that helps you to grow instead of energy that takes your life away. But when the mind is quiet, you can receive real knowledge, real wisdom, that energy that really emanates from the source, the fountainhead of all energy, the energy that truly is God, spirit, whatever you want to call it. We are open enough to receive it. We have the strength to be able to support it because we are grounded inside, our hearts are open. And when the heart is open, all of that knowledge and wisdom, can be used in the world. It comes out as love, it comes out as compassion, it comes out as forgiveness, et cetera, et cetera. So all of this is essential to forget about a spiritual life, just about learning how to be human, learning how to function here on a very high level of what it means to be a human being. So it's really not getting out of the mind. It's quieting the mind. It's transforming the mind into an instrument that can be used to open the very core of your being. And then making room in yourself because you don't have all that chattering going on all the time, all that madness going on in the brain. There's room inside to begin to receive. And the universe is dying to give us this. It's almost like Handel's Hallelujah chorus. When somebody is quiet enough in the mind, it's the Hallelujah chorus in the universe. Hey, there's somebody we can feed. This knowledge, this wisdom that we're dying to give to people on the earth, but they're too busy being crazy in their heads. And once you can receive that knowledge and wisdom, the whole perspective of the world changes, It's God's wisdom. God's wisdom is nothing like what we call human intelligence. It's a whole different perception of the universe. That's what flows through us. And we begin to see the difference between illusion and reality. We don't have to spend all our time analyzing illusion and reality to come to some conclusion of, we see it as living experience. We begin to live that way. As well as 1,000 other things that suddenly change directly in front of us. Because that energy is now determining how we live, not our minds, our egos, our thinking process, whatever we think is right or wrong and good and bad, et cetera, et cetera. So it's really not getting out of the mind. You want to get out of your mind, just go in your mind. You'll quickly get out of your mind. It's quieting the mind is learning to use the mind as an instrument to open the very core of our being. We become surgeons. I hope that's clear because this is really important stuff, you know? It's stuff that nobody teaches because everybody's trying to figure out the world and change the external world. And they think that's going to change them, and it's not. Yeah, it helps. People have a little more money, they have a little bit more, you know, all this stuff they try to do in politics. But it doesn't really change people inside. And I know it's important that people need food and they need housing, they need places to live and all this stuff. You know, it's really important because nobody should live the way people live on our planet. But I also believe that if people were open and developed the kind of system I talk about, nobody would live that way. You know, because everybody spends all their life expecting that the external world is going to be fixed by some politicians in Washington, and then everything's going to change for me. And as long as I can remember, it's just one disappointment after another. It never changes. If people change inside, then they get a grasp on how to deal with the Maya, how to make Maya work for us instead of being drowned by it. And in not a negative way, in a very positive way, a loving way, a conscious way. So I think this kind of work is essential. I mean, just to function here on a better level as a human being. This is all essential. It's a very good question, Wendy. Thank you. You're very wonderful.
Thank you.
Please try and sit still, you know. It's really important. I hate to be a taskmaster here. I'm really not, you know. Try and just sit still. If you move, it's going to disrupt the class. It's that simple. Does anyone else have a question they would like to ask? I mean, if you want to change your life, if you want to be more successful in life, change your internal world. Do the work in depth and stop jerking yourself around and, oh, well, I go to meditation class 3, 4 times, 2 times a week. It's really the practicality of what you do with that inner work and how it truly transforms you. And then the external world will begin to change. Because everybody's external world is just a reflection of themselves. It's what you see because that's what it's like I said the other day, last week or sometime, you know, that spiritual energy is not positive or negative. It's just energy. It's a union of positive and negative. It comes into us because we are open. And then it really goes through a transformation and is used in the world according to the condition of a human being inside himself. If people are neurotic and crazy, that's how it manifests. If people are greedy in them, that's how it manifests. If people all they want is power and that, you know, that's how it manifests. But the energy itself is neither positive or negative. It's just energy. And the less there is of us to interfere with that energy flowing through, you see, on, you know, the level that it manifests is on a much higher, it manifests as love. It manifests as joy, as happiness, forgiveness. It elevates the human race. So don't complain about what you see outside yourself, just change inside. And if people would change inside, I mean, look, I know it's naive to think 8 billion people are going to do this and live on this planet. That's why there's reincarnation, and to give them, a million lifetimes in order to finally stop beating their heads against the wall and make those kinds of inner changes. Does anyone else have a question they would like to ask? And the incredible thing is God provides, I mean, this COVID thing, which has kind of been not even a minor league nightmare, a major league nightmare for the last 2.5 years. In my life, it has produced the most extraordinary miracles. One of them is what I'm doing right here, sitting here and having these meditation classes with all of you. That's how COVID and all this has manifested in my life. Being able to sit here and do this kind of deep inner work, having these kinds of words come through me. If I was congested in my head, do you think these words could come through me? It's not me talking, it's this higher energy talking. And honestly, as I always tell you, I have to listen also. But the most miraculous things have taken place in the last year and a half. And I know it takes time to build an inner life that's strong enough to do what I'm talking about. But time is, look, there's a wonderful mandala in Tibetan Buddhism called the Mount Meru mandala. And it's, very interesting mandala. It's, there's a mountain that's about 60,000 feet high, surrounded by an ocean that's about 60,000 feet wide, surrounded by a mountain range that's 30,000 feet high, surrounded by, and it goes on 13 times. You have this mandala. At the center is Mount Meru. And it seems like some macrocosmic, entity that is beyond all human and it is. And what makes it really beyond all human comprehension in the Tibetan Buddhist theology, there's thousands of these macrocosms floating through space. And that basically is what time is. It appears to be, and it's one of thousands of macrocosms that are floating through, microcosms that are floating through space. So you spend 10 years, 5 years, 30, one could spend 100 lifetimes just learning how, to develop a system inside that'll enable them to have a spiritual life. Does anyone else have a question they would like to ask? And it's really also, just to finish this up, it's a matter of what our priorities are. You understand? And the ability to say no. I mean, if these classes really have value, yeah, things come up and think, no, I got to do this. I mean, I've always spoken about this. Years ago, I used to run a very high-tone antique business in New York, very expensive stuff. And, you know, Chris knows about it. She used to work for me, for God's sake, for a number of years. And, you know, and I would have people call me up. I want to come by your loft at, you know, 7 o'clock this evening. You know, I want to, you know, there's a statue or Tonka or painting there that I'm interested in. And I would say, look, you can't come by here at 7 o'clock in the evening. And the thing might have been worth $30,000, $50,000, you know? And I would say, look, you can't come by here. I have a meditation class to teach. You know, in all the years I ran that business, I never lost a client because I said, no, you can't come by here at 7 o'clock in the evening. I have a meditation class to teach. And if you lose a friend or a relative because you tell them that, it's probably better off that you don't have them as a friend or a relative. I mean that. Because they don't respect the thing that's giving you your life. You know, so one has to be able to say no. One has to be able to say, look, I have something I need to do in this time frame. And whatever you want to do, I can do it either after or before. That in itself is the kind of commitment that truly enables a person to grow. Because you have the capacity to say, no, I know what is important in my life. And I'm just using this as an example. It could be, you know, whatever it is in your life. If it has that kind of importance, then you should be able to say no. You know, I don't want to promote what I do and this and that, or make people feel guilty for not being here. And that's not the point. The point is commitment. The point is knowing what gives you your life, knowing what really works to help you to grow every day in your life, knowing how to get closer to God because you do something in your day that really helps you to get there. Knowing how to make that significant. And in being significant and being a commitment, knowing how to look at somebody in a nice way and say, no, I can't do this then. I have, could be what I teach, it could be what somebody else teaches. You know, it has, you know, it could be some spiritual practice, whatever it is, it has to have that kind of significance. It's like when Rudy told me we're going to move to the Middle East. And I, you know, in my life, I never thought about moving. I've talked about this a lot, but it's relevant to this. I never thought about living in the Middle East. But if I could be in Egypt or, you know, I don't know, the Judea desert or wherever, you know, in the Middle East, and I was with Rudy, all right, my spiritual life will continue in a very deep way. And I could say no to everything else because my spiritual life was more important to me than I thought. Everything else just takes me, I don't know where it takes me. It just made my life more confusing. And only through the development of a spiritual life did the rest of the life fall into place. After the spiritual life developed inside me, I got closer to my family, to my mother, to my, you know, my sister, to, you know, I mean, it all fell into place. My mother became a student of mine, for God's sake. I'll never forget that. You talk about working out your karma. You know, can I come to your meditation class? I said, yes. It really fell into place. And she used to come to the ashram or the meditation center on 4th Avenue. And and was treated like a queen. I mean, it just used to bring a tear to my eye, the way people treated her. Does anyone else have a question they would like to ask? I hope all this is clear, you know. Very important, all of this stuff. And I'm trying to make it as practical as possible, you know. Also, just to finish up, you know, hopefully by the middle of February, I'll start having in-person classes. If people want to come here, you know, they're welcome. Spend 3-4 days having healing sessions and in-person classes. I really want to do that. It's very important. And also the New York, Connecticut, this whole area, tri-state area, the Omicron, or whatever it's called, it's starting to go down pretty seriously, 50%, 40%, you know? So hopefully by the middle of February, all of this is kind of finished with, we have endemic instead of pandemic. Does anyone else have a question they would like to ask? Okay, well, God bless you all. Thank you. And as I tell you after every class, you know, I mean, your presence here forces me to work in such depth inside myself that I can have nothing but gratitude for every single one of you that come to these classes. So God bless you all and thank you. And you know, I mean, it's a miracle to be able to sit here for an hour and a half and do this. It's like extraordinary. Blows my socks away. And I've been doing this for a long time. So God bless you all. There'll be a class tomorrow evening, and I'm looking forward to seeing everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart. God bless you.
Thank you, Stuart.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.